Hello and welcome to today's webinar, HSO Accelerated Finance. Go live with confidence in as little as 12 weeks. Today we're joined by Jackie Hoyle and Jeff Hodson from HSO. We're going to find out how HSO's expert finance teams are working alongside companies to successfully implement Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance in as little as 12 weeks. We're also going to hear from the FD at Utilita Energy about how they have quickly transformed their business and the benefits that they have gained from using this service. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Jackie Hoyle.
Hello, my name is Jackie Hoyle. I'm Enterprise Architect for HSO. I'm here to talk to you about the HSO Accelerated Finance. Just move on through the slides and just do a positioning so you can understand what it is that HSO Accelerated Finance is all about. HSO Accelerated Finance gives you confidence to go live on Finance ERP within 12 weeks. Why do we attempt this? I'm going to briefly go through this for you. What does it entail? What are our tools, our techniques, and the reality? So we're going to hear from the head of finance consultants, and we're going to hear from the finance director from one of the organisations that we've implemented this in 12 weeks. So why do we attempt this? Well, first of all, it's safe. It's a safe, structured framework that we've implemented in a number of occasions already for organisations across a multi-currency and a multi-legal entity practice. We follow our standard best practice processes, which are formulated through the structured framework, and that helps an organisation achieve standardisation throughout. What this allows is a more hands-on approach from your project team. It allows you to get familiar with the product from week one. This allows you to be more hands-on immediately within week one of us coming on site or remote workshops by giving you access to a customized sandbox environment, and this allows you to follow our product-led workshops and get hands-on straight away. What does this mean? This means it can reduce time and reduce cost, because that early familiarization is absolutely critical to the success of a project. So what does it entail? It entails three key things: the tool set, the techniques, and the timeline. What's the tool set? These are the modules that are included, and I'm going to explain the actual tool set itself. The techniques Jeff will explain later, and these essentially are product-led workshops and task recordings, which allows this powerful hands-on involvement. And then the timeline. I'm going to walk through what activities are needed and when, and how in that 12 weeks, and therefore how we can successfully get you live with confidence in 12 weeks. And then we're going to talk about the reality. We're going to hear from Ash Milne, the FD at Utilita, who has achieved this. And we're going to hear from Jeff as well about the reality and what needs to be considered from the customer project team. So moving on to the tool set. The finance modules that are covered means we can accommodate multi-legal entities, multi-currency, general ledger, VAT, bank management, accounts payable, and accounts receivable. The HSO Accelerated Finance Toolset accommodates a Level 1 table of contents, a Level 2 business process Visio flowcharts, Level 3 task recordings. I'm going to show you examples of these. So what this allows is a combination, it's a cross-reference toolset to allow the user from the project team to go through and follow the click steps on a pre-configured environment, link it together with the product-led workshops and understand the process step by step that we're walking through. This creates this safe, structured environment for learning. In addition to that, we also appreciate that different people learn in different ways, and we've also created quick reference guides. So this is a quick click step that you can print off and follow on the side of your computer. We also talk through data templates, whether these be for master and transactional data, to support the cutover process to help you get live on time. We also talk through configuration templates. It's very important to the success of a project that we go through and we ensure we have captured all the right information to build that system. That means you can go live successfully. We also link this together with a business requirement document, which is connected to our toolset. The workshop agendas are cross-referenced to the business requirement document, to the task recordings, and to the configuration templates. This allows a connected view of progress as we go through the implementation. The configured sandbox environment is ready for customer use from week 1. This means that after every workshop, you can get your hands on the system, following the task recordings or the quick reference guide, and follow the steps we've actually shown you and talk you through. The product-led workshops allow us to demonstrate the best practice processes, and the best practice processes are adopted and reinforced in the table of contents and the business process Visio flow. And then to follow on from that, we also have a goal configuration where we give you guidance on those build requirements. We also give you guidance on your new chart of account structure to accommodate the best practice within Microsoft Dynamics. And then we can provide guidance on testing so you can ensure you test the system successfully. Introduced to the level 1 table of contents, this shows you the high-level functional summary of all the areas of the module in the system that is included in the Accelerated Finance. You can see here we have 30 level 2 business process Visios, and that's connected to the level 3 task recordings, of which we have 285. As a connected structured framework, what this allows is it allows us to do the process product-led workshop and therefore identify the task recordings immediately that can be used by the user to follow on for their learning. An example here on the left-hand side is a level 2 Visio, and on the right-hand side is D365 with a task recording where you can play that as a guide. This guide is a step-by-step guide that takes you around the system, and you can follow that to actually learn how to process any of the recordings that we've done. This is the business requirements document, which is uploaded to DevOps, which is a supported system. This is cross-referenced to the Visios, the task recordings, and the workshops. And this allows the user and the consultants to understand what is happening in which workshop, and therefore have this framework that the customer can follow and understand which task recordings can be watched and followed to aid their customer familiarization. What we have here is our example of the quick guide on the left-hand side of the screen, an example of the test scenarios on the right-hand side of the screen. You can see that they're cross-referenced and connected, and this means that if a user wishes to print off the quick reference guide and follow this, then that's not a problem at all. If they wish to follow and create the test scenarios, then these are all connected to the Accelerated Finance toolset. This is our goal chart of accounts and config summary. The goal chart of accounts allows us to map out your chart of accounts and understand how it should be connected together so we can understand the right use of the account structure, the financial dimension examples to make the best use of the embedded BI fields. We can support multi-legal entities, and this can be cross-referenced through to the configuration checklist. What this allows is the customer and HSO have a shared understanding of what needs to be completed in the relevant phases of the implementation to therefore complete on time. This allows the right conversations to happen and allows the right level of detail to be captured in the analysis and design phase. Moving on to the techniques, we're going to hear from Jeff Hodson, who's our Head of Finance Consultants, and he's going to talk about the product-led workshops, show you the task recordings, and show you the Lifecycle Services Business Process Modeler.
Thanks, Jackie. Jackie has given you an introduction to best practice and explained the tool set to enable you to take the approach. I'm just going to go through a couple of techniques and collateral that have been developed to support the approach. So the approach that we're going to take is by introducing you to product-led workshops. And what this means is that we won't spend days and days doing analysis sessions to find out what your requirements are. We'll go straight into the system and demonstrate the system to the users using our best practice processes and best practice configuration. We'll do a couple of iterations of these workshops, which will then allow you to feed back to us things that may need changing in the configuration or where data maybe needs to be changed. The other two things that we're actually using are LCS, Lifecycle Services Business Process Modeler, and the task recordings. The task recordings are where we actually record all the business processes that we've developed and play those back to you, and the user can then play them back to teach themselves and to relearn things that we've shown them. So first of all, I'm going to go into the business process modeler, which sits in Lifecycle Services. So this is the project that we've set up for HSO UK ES Best Practice. And as you can see from here, we've got 285 business processes currently developed for this project. If we just go into one of these, so we'll pick on purchase ledger and procurement and drop down here. These are the different levels that Jackie has probably already explained in the previous session. So below these, they've got purchase invoice control. We've got all the different processes within this particular overarching process. If we go back up to the purchase invoice control level and click on the diagram, you can see under the Visio, an overarching Visio diagram of the whole of the purchase invoice control. And each of the blue boxes are an individual business process that we have corresponding task recorders for. To sit alongside those business processes, we also have other resources within SharePoint. So we've got a huge file structure containing all the different modules within finance. And if you have a look, we've got within introduction, we've got some PowerPoints to explain to users within the project of the way that the project is going to be run. We've got some non-module specific setup, and within here, we have things like a standard best practice agenda. So we've got an agenda that covers every single one of the best practices. Sorry, stop, 3, 2, 1. Within the agenda, we've got an agenda that contains all of the processes that are contained within best practice, and then that can be broken down into individual workshops ready for the day of the actual workshop. We've also got other things like monthly checklists as a default and other such information that will help once the project is started and ongoing. Once we get into the actual different modules, so I'm going to again use purchase ledger as an example, we've also got master data templates, transaction templates, and what these are holding templates for you to upload your data into the system. So now I'm just going to go briefly into D365 itself and show you how we run and work with the task recorders. You can access the task recorders through the help button, but if you go through the settings button and task recorders, and there's two options that we're going to use today. One is play recording as a guide, and one is playback recording, and I'll explain the difference to them as we go along. So we click on playback recording. You can hold and store individual task recorders in your own on your own PC, and that's if you want to save your own because you want to do something slightly different. But the ones that we're saving are the ones in Lifecycle Services, which are the ones that were attached to the business process modeler. Just bear with me a second. So this is the actual library that we've got on the system, which contains all those. So if I just drop down on there, again, you can see the same list of modules that we had earlier in SharePoint. If I click on purchase ledger and procurement and purchase invoice control, and a very, very simple process we're going to do is create invoice journal. Click OK. And then click start. And what this particular one is going to do, this is not going to ask for any interaction from the user other than to play next pending step. And this is a visual diagram or a visual explanation step by step of how to complete this process. So first of all, it's going to tell you down here that it's going to go to purchase ledger, invoices, invoice journal. Play the next step. It's going to create a new journal. Again, the next step. It's going to select the journal type. Next step. And it's going to go to the invoice lines. And you can see from that, that's going to go through the whole process step by step from start to finish. So if you've not used the system before and you want to see how it's done, or you want a refresher of how it's done, then go and play the task recorder in this mode. So this time I'm going into play a task recorder, but this time rather than playing back as a recording, I'm going to play the recording as a guide. And what this actually means is that the user is going to have to interact with the system, and this task recorder is going to tell the user what to do instead. So this time I'm going to again open from Lifecycle Services, pick the project that I'm working on, and again pick the same purchase ledger, purchase invoice control, and create invoice journal business process. Click OK. open the task guide, and you'll see now that there's lots of steps for the user to actually follow rather than the system doing it for you. So we want to start the task guide, and what it'll say, it'll come up with a black box at the top, and it'll say go to the purchase ledger, invoices, invoice journal. And this means now that the user, a little bit more advanced, has more knowledge of the system and knows how to navigate around. So this time to go to invoice journal, you can see that the little black box wobbles a little bit and it goes to the next step on the task guide, which is click new. Click on new. Again, you click the right thing, so it wobbles, it moves across to the right. The next step is in the name field, enter or select the invoice journal name. So I'm going in, I'm going to select that from the drop down. And again, it knows I've done it right. It's asking me to put a description in. So this time I'm going to put a test business practice invoice. And as soon as I tab out of that, it wobbles again and goes to lines. Click on lines and it goes on to the next stage. So as you can see, this is a more advanced way of playing back the recording and guiding the user through the system. So hopefully it's a good training guide and refresher guide to people who are using the system. Okay, thanks for that. I'll hand back across to Jackie now, and she can explain some of the project timelines.
Thanks, Jeff. So moving on to the timeline, this is how we can get you live with confidence in 12 weeks. So starting from the left, we'd have a 3-week analysis and design phase. This allows us to accommodate and plan out all the product-led workshops with our prepared workshop agendas and our templates. We would use the configured sandbox environment and allow you to have time to play on the system, which is what we call the customer familiarization tools. That hands-on time allows us to build the requirements register and ensure we have the solution design sign-off within 3 weeks. We'd also discuss and agree the data migration strategy, the testing strategy, and ensure that all the configuration templates are completed within that phase. We generally call that the solution review, analysis and design phase. Then we move on to build or develop. This allows HSO to go away with the information that we've attained in the analysis and design phase, take that away and go and build the gold environment. Meanwhile, the customer continues with the customer familiarization, can create the test scripts and start to map the master and transactional data, and continue with data cleansing and start to create the management reports. And then we're back on site in the deliver phase. This is the UAT, the user acceptance testing. We allow 2 full UAT cycles in this 5 weeks. This allows, we start off with ensuring the key users are trained, we support the loading of data for UAT, and then we commence testing and support that testing process. During this time, we will request the production environment, ensure that all reports are tested and finalize the cutover plan, and ensure that the test data for migration is tested and the training materials are prepared. This allows us to sign off UAT with the solution that's going to go live with, and then we can start the deploy phase. The deploy phase is all about preparing for go live. So in this 2 weeks, we'll do final cutover testing. What this means is we go through and support that process to ensure that you can extract, transform, and load your data to go live with. We ensure that we copy our configuration build into production and work with Microsoft to ensure that that happens in a timely manner to allow you to go live within 12 weeks. And then following that, we then support you for 8 weeks, including the first month end support, and ensure that we operate the system handovers to make sure you're self-sufficient to move forward. Hand it over to Jeff Hodson and Ashley Milne. They're going to talk about the reality.
Thanks, Jackie. So after we've been through the timelines, I'm just going to go through a bit of the reality of what this project means to the users and the project team. So some of the things to consider, it's going to be quick. It's going to be quicker than any IT project of any size that you've implemented before. There's going to be a big impact on the customer project team, and that project team must be fully engaged on the project. It's going to be very, very tight to actually get these things delivered in time. The state of the legacy data is very, very, very important. It's once the project has been decided that it's going to go ahead, we need to start working on legacy data. We need to get it cleansed. We need to decide what data we're going to actually migrate into D365. Standard processes all the way. So the processes that we've developed and decided upon are best practice processes. That doesn't mean that we can't change them and tweak them a little bit, but in the main, they're the best processes to go with if we're going to hit the timelines. So we need a really big buy-in from the project team. This is going to be their life for a couple of months. We need to make use of the familiarization tools. So task recorder a biggie. We really need to use that to its full extent. The project team will be using it to get up to speed, and then they'll be using that as super users to pass on their knowledge to the rest of the users once they go live. There's going to be extended post-go live support. Generally, we'll have a number of weeks for post-go live support, but that's reliant upon a longer implementation period where people have had a number of months on the system. Obviously, there's going to be a few things that people don't know, they're not aware of, so they'll need that little bit of extra go live support. And just to reiterate, think about data now. If you're thinking about getting a new system, data is going to be very, very important, irrespective of what the solution is going to end up as. So what's expected from you? Commitment, really, really full commitment. Hands-on familiarization. So right from the start, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to have access to the system, both in us doing presentations and you being able to get hands-on as soon as we've done a presentation. The dedicated team, so that dedicated team again, together with the commitment, means that we're going to have to get this team on board with what we're doing and get them engaged for the duration of the project. Make the decisions. So the more that we dwell over decisions on chart of accounts and other configuration, the more chance that we're going to push the timeline out. So we need to make the decisions in a very, very quick way. Follow the vanilla best practice and the standardized processes. Again, we've done a lot of work on these standard processes and the best practice, so use them. Doesn't mean, as I said earlier, it doesn't mean that you're fixed into that. We can tweak them a little bit. Try to get more complication into that, then it'll affect the timeline. Keep it simple. Get us live, get us on a foundation system that we can work on, and then develop it, put your complications in later once everything's established. And again, think about data now. Thanks for joining me today. I'll just hand you across to Ashley from Utilita. He's going to go through his customer experience of implementing HSO Accelerated Finance. Thank you very much for your time.
So my name's Ashley Milne. I work for Utilita. I started here about 18 months ago with the remit really of coming in to implement a new ERP system. The entire business had grown rapidly and finance now needed to kind of transform and change what we were doing. Yeah, COVID-19 hasn't particularly affected Utilita from a kind of operational perspective. With D365 being cloud, everyone could work from home. I think the biggest challenge we had really was not everyone had laptops. If anything, COVID's probably accelerated our paperless finance function. We were pretty much digital anyway. So Utilita chose Microsoft Dynamics because it kind of sat in the middle of the market, which is kind of exactly where Utilita is really in the energy space. And that kind of felt like a good fit culture with the organisation. It wasn't a mature, big enterprise platform like the SAP and the Oracles out there. We felt they were a bit too unwieldy, and their reputation really of a hammer to crack a walnut still felt like it was true. So as a growing organisation, we needed to make sure the platform was able to scale to that kind of level. It wasn't too small and wasn't so small that we couldn't operate. And Dynamics really felt like it sat in that middle space. It was kind of that dynamic that had that ability to grow. So Utilita chose HSO as our implementation partner for Microsoft Dynamics because we felt they were a good fit as a business culturally and in terms of size. We'd looked across the market, decided that those larger organisations, in fact, some of them couldn't even keep up with the timeline that we wanted to evaluate the products. One of the other key parts of selecting HSO was the fast track program. As we looked through Dynamics and the other platforms, what we decided was we didn't want to kind of design the whole thing from scratch. This was a whole transformation of finance, so we just wanted to take best practice and evolve processes around the tool as opposed to the tool around the processes. And HSO's fast track program helped us with that. So HSO have been there really as a collaborative partner throughout. They were on site throughout the implementation, leading the workshops to understand Utilita as a company, the business processes, and really added quite a lot of value in suggesting new ways of doing things and how things could evolve to work with the tool as opposed to us mending the tool to what we were currently doing. So every time we've raised a ticket on the portal with HSO and the support team, we've always had a response, so it's always been timely. Obviously, depending on the ticket, it takes a bit longer sometimes to fix, and when it has taken longer to fix, that engagement to really understand, kind of get on Teams, do a web chat with the individuals to really understand what it is they're doing, what they're clicking, what that process is, has been a great benefit. I think with hindsight, it's very easy to look at the kind of lessons learned that we could have had. And the 5 months that it took us to implement it, had we had a bit more time, we possibly would have taken that, invested it up front. One of the things that we did during implementation was we assigned SMEs to specific functions. They very then rightly focused on those functions, but as we kind of then went live, we then had to spend those next 5 months cross-training people in the different processes that they weren't so familiar with. So I guess I've seen a number of kind of IT system implementations, multi-year ones, and I've seen companies roll out a new finance system where they're still continuing to roll it out in some countries, and yet they're upgrading to the latest version of the new. So it was critical for us really that we just got on and did something. We didn't want this to be an 18-month program. We didn't want this to continue rolling on. So we wanted to make sure we took out of the box as vanilla as possible, and kind of evolve our processes so that they fixed to the way the system worked as opposed to how we worked. Chose Dynamics as a platform that could potentially scale with Utilita. We knew that the other options in the estate basically included field service. That's something that we might want to look at in the future. Our stock and warehouse module needs looking at as well. So we're looking at advanced warehousing potentially, and even maybe some of the CRM front end. We currently operate our own bespoke in-house CRM application, and there's still a desire to keep that because that means that we've got our own intellectual property that's unique value to us as a supplier. But there might be elements within that estate there that we could kind of just cherry pick from and integrate. We don't have to develop ourselves those kind of core features.